Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon if you are in Asia Pacific. My name's Stephanie Hopper. I'm one of the directors of the talent practice at Capfinity, joined by my co-host Celine today, who will introduce herself shortly. A few words on Capfinity. We're a global business based in various locations across the UK, Dublin in Ireland, various locations in the US, and of course, Sydney, Australia. And we've been helping organisations to find candidates, develop employees and transform their business around our USP of strengths-based assessment and development for over 16 years. Celine and I head up the talent practice, and we support organisations to identify and develop their talent all the way through from early careers to executive leadership through a market-leading method of strengths. Celine, welcome.
Hi, Steph. Thank you. Lovely to be here today for our 33rd episode. As Steph said, my name is Celine Floyd. I'm the other director of the talent practice here at Capfinity and head up the global team that lead on designing and delivering talent and leadership assessments. I'm a chartered occupational psychologist with a specialist expertise in leadership, which is what this series is all about. So today's topic is looking at strategic vision in leadership, something that we know is really important for lots of different organisations. And we are joined, as always, by two fantastic guests. Thank you both so much for joining. I think it's time for you to introduce yourselves to the audience. So we're joined first by Dr. Tracey Leghorn. Lovely to see you, Tracey. I wonder if you could just tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your career, and maybe specifically why you're interested in the topic of leadership as a topic.
Thanks, Celine. I'm Tracey Leghorn. I've got a 25-year career in HR, and I think leadership plays a huge part and has done throughout my HR career. I've worked in lots of different settings, both on client side and in consultancy with PwC. And at the moment, I'm the Chief HR and Health and Safety Officer on the board of SUEZ Recycling and Recovery UK, which is the second largest waste and resources and environmental services in the UK.
Wonderful, thank you. Great to have you with us. And Peter, same to you. Hi.
Hi, Celine. Hi, everyone. So I'm Peter Attfield. I'm currently the Chief Talent and Learning Officer for an Asian-based conglomerate called Jardine Matheson. I've been in this role in Hong Kong for about 4 years now. I've actually been working for, I counted them up, 45 years, so that makes me quite old. 10 of them in finance, 12 in management consulting, and now 23 in HR, sort of broadly split equally between expertise roles like my current one and HR partnering roles. I guess the red thread through my career in this whole period, be it consulting or HR, has been around large-scale culture change, organization transformational change, both as a consultant and in HR. Hong Kong is country number 9 for me. I've lived in most of the sort of developed and developing regions of the world, there are pluses and minuses of being a global citizen, but I guess the pluses outweigh the minuses on balance. I guess in terms of, the topic of passion about leadership, well, I've been around this topic for a long, long time, both as a consultant and in HR. I feel fortunate really to have seen the extremes of great leadership and really poor leadership and sort of think I know what the difference looks like now. And particularly as it sort of relates to the impact that leaders have on organizations and culture and ways of working and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Brilliant. Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Tracey. I'm thrilled to have both of you with us. Peter's having none of it if I mention the UK heat wave. He knows that proms are a little bit wussy. So we're not going to go there if you're watching from the UK, okay? Because Peter's done it better than all of us, I tell you.
We've been put in our place. We've been put firmly in our place this morning. Yeah.
Exactly. So as Celine said, today's topic is strategic vision. And in our meta-analysis we did of the most important strengths for successful leaders in the 21st century, strategic vision came out as one of the key 8 strengths. And our research found that what strategic vision really, so how we defined it, I guess, was a number of different factors. One was enjoying problem solving and strategizing to move a business forward and create greater value. Secondly was anticipating changes on the horizon and planning how we're going to respond to them in the future. Thirdly was thinking in terms of years rather than months when it came to kind of business objectives. And finally, having the ability to see lots of disparate links and understand how those factors kind of interact and come together. And leaders maybe who are less strong in that area perhaps are more focused on, you know, shorter term and tactical medium term goals, and maybe aren't particularly interested in the external context of their business. That's not where their energy comes from. And perhaps struggle with analysing information to gain strategic insight or to assess risks. And some research that was conducted by someone called Kabakoff in 2014, it was a big piece of research. I think it was over 60,000 managers, you know, almost 150 different countries, 26 industries. He found that a strategic approach to leadership was on average 10 times more important to effectiveness than hands-on tactical behaviours. So long-term thinking and strategic focus differentiated between the middling leaders and those who were the most effective of all. And that was also backed up by Zenger and Folkman in 2016. And they found the major difference to the leaders who got promoted to higher levels within an organisation versus those who stayed lower down was an ability to demonstrate that strategic vision and being able to advocate to improve your strategic vision, they said, was really to spend time with customers. So I guess this involves a lot more than a 5-word catchy mission statement. Strategic vision, leaders with strategic vision can identify priorities and opportunities that deliver on that mission and empower their teams to figure out a way to deliver on it. So my first question, I'm going to come to Tracey first, is where have you seen leaders being able to bring their vision to life in a way that unites their team around it and gives people hope and inspiration for the future?
Yeah, I think for me, it's important that the vision has substance and that it can have meaning for people and be brought to life for people. You know, not something that's too complicated, to be fair. I think my first real sort of light bulb moment around a leader bringing a vision together was, well, it's nearly 20 years ago in the times where of Victoria Columbier and the issue around children's services. And I was working in local government at the time. And that led to a report that led to all local government organisations needing to redefine their structures and create a united children's services. Previously, children's services sat in several directorates, and the issue around that case was that nothing was properly connected. And so the council went through this period of change and created a children's services department for the first time. But we had to deal with what was left and make sense of what was left. And I sat with sort of adult social services, and they were given in this carve up things like libraries and museums. And it was, well, you know, how can you sit those together and make a vision? And actually, the leader of that director at the time said, well, do you know, actually, if we can engage people to do things for their well-being, for leisure, to go to museums, to go to parks, to go into our libraries, then perhaps we won't have as many people who find themselves in need of social care. And, you know, that absolutely made sense to me. And for the first time, I saw actually someone who was visionary in their approach, and I was very excited by that.
And it sounded like, Tracey, that was something you could connect to personally, as well as see how it would impact the work that you were all doing together, I guess.
Yeah, I could see the meaning of it. And as we sat round as a leadership team, he was very much, you know, everybody's area is everybody's area. We are one team. Everyone's success is everyone's success. and failures are everybody's failures. And the amount of times I've said that in the 15 or so years after is incredible. And it, as I say, it has really stuck with me in the period afterwards.
Brilliant example. Peter, what about you? What examples have you seen in your global citizenship of, being able to, leaders who can bring their vision to life?
Yeah, so as I reflected on this question, Stephanie, what sort of came to me in two parts, really. The first was, who and who's inspired me. We all read a lot, we all sort of listen to podcasts or whatever, and we all get inspiration. And then, so that's where I want to start. And then I'll talk a little bit about what I think the red thread is, if you like, through some of that. But, and I'd sort of start with some of my favorite external examples, and we all know the names. Richard Branson, what does Virgin stand for? Why would anyone want to go to Virgin to disrupt the status quo of, big, dull companies ripping off customers? Isn't that massively inspiring? Satya Nadella, I don't want to use him as an example because it's overdone, but, look what he's been doing in the last couple of years and the impact that's been having on not only Microsoft, but, leadership narratives in general. I think that the pandemic actually has seen some really wonderful examples of CEOs stepping up and sort of humanizing their vision, if you like, in difficult times. You may well remember the way the Airbnb guy talked to the people about all the redundancies that they had to make, or the CEO of Marriott, and when he was explaining why they had to lose thousands of people. Highly inspiring sort of narratives and videos. And then another angle was, you could go down the purpose route, right? And I'm not a massive fan, I have to say, but examples like a guy called Bill North that used to be the CEO of Medtronic, and he was the father of authentic leadership, and they had a purpose at that time of sort of alleviating pain, restoring health, and extending life. Well, what a wonderful, and the whole organization was aligned around that. Or, another recent one, which COVID related again, which I think is a really wonderful example of this, is what the AstraZeneca CEO did in terms of saying, we're not going to make any profit out of this vaccine, right? And whilst it's sort of proven, I guess, that it wasn't a great vaccine at the end of the day, nevertheless, the sort of the followership that must have generated in AstraZeneca and is amazing. And then I bring it to my own experience, right? So, as I said, I've done 30 years of large-scale change, and I've been blessed to work with leaders that have done it brilliantly or not brilliantly, as the case may be. I'm ex-Unilever, so I was sort of blessed to be in one of the world's great companies for a period. I saw, very successful transformations regionally in Latin America. I saw it globally. If we all know the Paul Polman story on the sustainable living plan, and sort of Unilever's sustainability credentials are sort of second to none, really. So I think there's zillions of examples, right? And for me, the sort of the red thread through all that is I think what sort of separates the good from the not so good in this space is, and I identify a lot with a piece of research that was done actually in IMD a couple of years ago by one of their professors, talking about leadership impact. And, they did a big longitudinal study of, research on leadership over eons, right? And they basically boiled it down to, leadership impact comes from three things: trust, clarity, and momentum. And, I think that, and we all can imagine what those words mean, right? But in the clarity space, purpose, direction, accountability, values, compelling, inspiring, what Tracey said before, the sort of the role modeling of the leader in the meeting, and, all of those things. It's obvious, isn't it? But it's just sort of uncommon common sense to some extent. And I think the other thing that I saw a lot of, and I'll shut up in my last point, but I saw a lot of in terms of the difference between good and not very good, is the good ones don't tolerate bad behavior. Any organization that's vision driven, mission driven, purpose driven, use your word, they're very purposeful about it, and if you don't like it, you leave, right? And it's not warm and fuzzy, it's actually quite hard. And, I think, and I'm not suggesting you behave like Elon Musk. I'm suggesting that you be congruent with, the whatever it is you're trying to do. So I probably spoke too long, but that's what I think.
Yeah, no, it's really, really interesting. You didn't speak too long. It was really insightful. And we've spoken about that notion of, being unapologetic with who you are as an organisation and what your purpose is. That has come up in a few of our latest episodes. And, that phrase, are you on the bus or are you off the bus? And as you say, when you have that real clarity of strategic vision and purpose, being able to communicate that clearly is really important.
The ex CHRO of Unilever, when I was there, had his version of that same phrase, which it became famous. You're either on the bus or under it, and it was one of the great examples for me of a business being congruent with what they said, because a lot of people ended up under it, and that was fine.
Yeah. And when you were speaking, I was pondering the balance that leaders have to strike between that real, laser focus on their strategic direction, but with the agility of being able to flex and move that. So that might be something interesting that we can come back to shortly. I just wanted to pick up, Peter, as well. You touched on sustainability, and I'm keen, Tracey, given your organisation and what you do, on your view of this, because what we are seeing with a lot of organisations is that stakeholders are now demanding that leaders' strategic vision also includes how their area of work or their organisation will have a positive and sustainable impact on society and the planet. That's more and more common. And I think that's something that can be quite tricky because it's a reasonably new entry for some organisations. So, Tracey, perhaps you could share with us how you have seen that be incorporated effectively. And Peter, I'll be keen for your view shortly. But Tracey, in the first instance, where have you seen that being done well?
It's interesting that in attending the CIPD conference this year, so much was focused around ESG and the fact that it's HR and people leaders who actually are taking on that role. And I felt really positive about that.
Good.
Clearly at SUEZ, being an environmental services organisation, it's part of all of our jobs, all 5,700 of us. Just an interesting point, Peter, just going to the AstraZeneca point and not wanting to make any profit out of the vaccines. Well, we're a waste management company that manages 11 million tonnes of waste a year. And our vision is to live in a world where there is no more waste. That's really, really important to us. We want to encourage.
I guess it's really tough right now, Tracey, with all the waste that's being generated through testing and PPE and all that sort of stuff. It must be incredible.
Well, I think it's just a sign of the times. Home delivery, a lot more packaging in that space as well. But not to go off track, it's just an interesting point there. I think for us, it is about living and breathing our vision and our purpose, to build a sustainable future that doesn't cost the earth, keeping things simple. For us, interweaving that sustainability into everything that we do. So we take what we call a triple bottom line approach, which we introduced a couple of years ago now, which is around people, planet and profit. And they're in that order. Treat our people well, manage our talent, develop our people, engage our people in our future. They will help us with our planetary and sustainable aims and those of our customers, and that will make us profitable. And actually, the last 2 years, despite a pandemic, we've come out of being the most profitable that we've ever seen in the 30-year history of the company. So investing in people and investing in the planet has actually brought, a great business case and profit to our organisation. Something that we don't apologise for, using the word profit, because that makes our company sustainable. But it is really about having that link and actually having that vision turned into some practical actions. So we trained our people on the environmental impact in a session that we call Fresco. And from that, we asked them what we should be doing as an organisation around sustainability. And from those comments, developed 10 sustainability principles. Very straightforward things that can be done on every single site. We also then asked for volunteers to be sustainability champions. And we've got champions now on 99% of our sites have a sustainability champion with action plans. And then putting our money where our mouth is, actually, we have one of our bonusable objectives now is around sustainable development and social value. So our people need to do certain things in and around that. And that's really built momentum around sustainability. And we can see it when we go out to our sites, whether that's beehives or flower beds, or creating well-being areas, doing things for the community. We've introduced a day a year to volunteer. So, really making that practical for our people and not just something that's words, turning it into reality.
Lovely. And I love that you used the word there that Peter referenced earlier around momentum being one of the three areas. And what I also loved was your the story you're telling around how actually having planet in that kind of strategic vision, has been shown to help with profitability. And it just reminds me of the trend that I think we saw with people, decades ago, this realization that actually, profit and people are interlinked. And if you look after your people, then your profit. So, and I think that's a key message for commercial leaders, isn't it? That this isn't something you have to do as an extra for your organisation. It's interlinked with commercials. And Peter, does that resonate with perhaps what you are seeing or have seen in the market around how strategic vision can effectively incorporate this focus on sustainability for society and the planet?
Yeah, no, well, it's obviously table stakes today, isn't it? It drives your reputation, it drives your share price, it drives your access to funding, it drives who wants to join you as a talent at any level, blah, 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 right? The number of questions that we get in our graduate recruitment round every year, I'd say half of them relate to something about sustainability, and just every year it's higher. So there's no question that it's here to stay, and it's sort of firmly on the strategic agenda of all organisations, I guess. I feel for me a bit like deja vu all over again to some extent, because I mentioned before I worked for Unilever. Unilever was probably one of the global pioneers in this space, and even before the Sustainable Development Plan with Paul Polman and whenever that was in the mid 2000s or something, Unilever had won the Dow Jones Sustainability Award for 14 years in a row or something like that, right? So there's an organization that's been doing this for 25 years, 30 years, and got amazing mileage from that. They've had a bit of a tough time lately when they were trying to discover the purpose of Hellmann's mayonnaise, and they got a bit of bad press, right? But they've done amazing things. And I fast forward that to where I am today in Jardines, and Jardines, we're a nearly $50 billion company, and we just released our first ever sustainability report 2 weeks ago, right? So this is 25 years after Unilever started, winning Dow Jones sustainability awards. We just produced our first report, and so it's for all the reasons that are obvious, right? Because there's a reputational impact and a Jardine share price impact that because we've been a rather decentralized conglomerate before, we never sort of thought about. But now here we are with, as I say, a group-wide report, and indeed 8 of our business units issued either their first or second report as well this year. So just reinforcing, I guess, what Tracey said, that A, here to stay, and B, I think the point of sort of making it practical and making it sort of bonusable and all that is also very, very important. And where taking baby steps in both of those directions as well, given that this is, relatively new for Jardine.
Love that, Peter. And actually what you said at the beginning there really struck a chord, because we ran a webinar last week about Generation Z and how they are becoming activists, really pushing as they come into the workforce. They're not willing to settle for organisations who tick a box around things like sustainability. They want to see action, and how that's going to fuel, hopefully more action in the right direction. Brilliant. I can't believe the time is almost up, as usual. Tracey and Peter, loads of lovely points that you've made for us today. I think for me, the main takeaways in summary are, first of all, I loved what Tracey started with around, that vision, that strategic vision has to have substance and meaning, but it has to be something that's not complicated. And then Peter gave us loads of great examples of leaders who have those inspiring visions, and they are simple and straightforward, and people can connect with them. And Tracey had that wonderful story from when she worked in local authority, and how she could connect personally as well as the people around her. I thought it was a great point about CEOs having to step up over the last few years in a way that they've never stepped up before, and create inspiring narratives for really difficult, tough messages that they've had to communicate that impact the strategy of their organisations. Also, this whole idea of sustainability, and I think the words that stayed with me there were when Tracey said about living and breathing it. And what I thought was interesting as I listened to both her and Peter was that it's not just about the vision on that, it's about the tangible actions. It is about the tactical that goes underneath that me as an employee can see, someone like SUEZ is putting their money where their mouth is, and, all the ideas and the things that she shared that they're doing to drive that vision so that it really, comes to life for people. So, brilliant. Lots of lovely things that we've covered. I'd love to come to each of you for a final point. Just a final nugget to leave our audience with. Peter, let me come to you first this time.
Well, I'll repeat something I said before, Stephanie, that, I'm a big believer that in this very simple model that leadership impact comes from three things: their ability to build trust, their ability to provide clarity, and their ability to build and sustain momentum in their organizations and everything that implies. And, it's a very simple model, but it's something I think is very powerful. And, leaders that can orchestrate all that are the ones that win, in my view.
Brilliant. Thank you, Peter. And Tracey, a final word from you.
Great leadership for me is not about sprouting glossy words. For me, vision needs to have substance. It needs to have meaning. And as I say, it needs to be translated into straightforward actions that everybody can get behind and, take part in and be involved in.
Amazing. Thank you. And Celine.
Yeah, I think strategic vision for me has always encompassed two key components. There's the thinking, the kind of cerebral, looking outside your organisation, thinking long term, thinking ahead, looking for opportunities. And then the second is this ability to influence and persuade and inspire people around to your plan or to your vision. And what I see is that a lot of leaders tend to be more effective in one or the other. And so I think that the message for me would be that's okay, but you do need both, and look to who you have around you to help you with one of those components. But thinking about it in those two building blocks, I think is really important, because you can't really be a really effective leader unless you're doing both of them.
Brilliant. Thank you. That's all for episode 33. We will be back for episode 34, I believe, in 3 weeks' time. We're swapping time zones, so we will have a leader joining us from New York early in the morning for him at breakfast time, I suspect, lunchtime UK time, talking about some of his leadership lessons. That's Chris Parry from Broadridge Financial Services. Thank you very much, Peter and Tracey, and of course, Celine. I hope everyone stays cool. Got to mention the weather, Peter, and we'll see you very soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.